What is going on, everybody? I'm John Hoey, that's James Baney, and this is the Resistance Broadcast, our Monday show. Welcome back, everybody. We hope you had a wonderful weekend. And speaking of welcome back to the Kessel Run, James.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing the Kessel Run for the first time, I think, with just two of us. Lacey is sort of on a half schedule right now. She'll be back with us for TRB Live Wednesday night. But this might be the first two-person Kessel Run we're doing, so we're changing it just a tinge, where we're sort of making it more of a draft in a sense. So you could steal mine, I could steal yours. We don't know whose picks are what, whereas traditionally with the Kessel Run, at least Lacey and I share our picks. James likes to be theatric about it.
I think that the first half of that Kessel Run is us clearly picking the best picks.
Yeah.
And then as we get towards the end, we might be sort of like, ooh, wasn't on my list, or was on my list, but I wouldn't have went with it. You know, that
I tried to find some things that aren't going to be on, this blog's top 10 moments in Rebels, I tried to find some stuff that maybe I like. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I know that, we're trying to put the best list together. So I kept that in mind too. But we also have other stuff to talk about. But before we do that, I just want to thank everybody who has signed up for our Patreon. It's a big deal to us. It means a lot. Honestly, the amount of stuff that we do here, it's just the three of us in TRB. We do all the writing, producing, everything, editing, all that stuff. And without our support on Patreon, we just couldn't do it. We have families, we have day jobs, we have a lot going on. So it really is sort of the lifeblood of keeping us doing what we're doing, and also hopefully adding more to that in the future. So whether you're new to our podcast or you've been around for a while and you're able to, just when you have a chance, go to patreon.com, patreon.com/resistance broadcast, and check out the tiers. They start at just $5. And if you look at the tiers, there's different content options. We have a lot of exclusive content, streams, Q&As, live chats, Discord server, commentaries, whole bunch of stuff, right, James? It's good stuff.
Absolutely. Lots of I was going to make a joke last week and I forget what it was. You said lots of mini episodes over there, and I said something like, I don't know, I can't remember now. There were many episodes. Many episodes, something along those lines.
But go check it out. If you're able to support us, we appreciate it very much. If not, totally cool, but it'd be cooler if you did, man. What's that from?
So many episodes. Maybe that's what it was.
I think that line is from Dazed and Confused, but I'm not sure. All right. It is time for us to warm things up here, James. And we do that how?
By doing Will of the Force.
I fear nothing, for all this as the Force wills it.
We're going to pose questions that ask whether something will or will not happen in the Star Wars universe. And some of these questions are from our patrons, of course. This week, we want to keep things moving along with Ahsoka, as that show is the show that's currently airing right now. So today's questions are going to be revolving around Ahsoka. But they come from our Resistance officers on Patreon. So let's get started with the first one here. This first question is going to come from one of our newest patrons, a Commander Trent.
Welcome,
Trent is on the show right now, and they wanted to know, now that Ahsoka is in the World Between Worlds, is there a chance that we can see Kanan in his sacrifice scene in live action, or will Ahsoka talk to any other Jedi such as Obi-Wan Kenobi or Yoda? Should I go first here?
Yeah, that's a loaded Will of the Force question.
It's pretty big. I'm gonna say no to Kanan and yes to Obi-Wan or Yoda or other Jedi of that sort. The thing with Kanan for me is they already did that in Rebels, and Kanan's sacrifice scene does not mean anything really to Anakin or Ahsoka. So to show it really doesn't serve a lot of purpose. As far as other Jedi, such as Obi-Wan or Yoda, I think that's a little bit more likely. The sky's the limit. The stars are the limit, I guess. I really don't know what they could do, but we have entered not just the world between worlds, but this new era of Star Wars that all started when Dave and John decided to bring a Luke Skywalker back, young Luke Skywalker. And I feel like as soon as that happened, all bets are off of anything that we could see for any reason.
Or,
and now
Tarkin in Rogue One.
Yeah, but that was part of the story. I mean, I guess it is, but yeah, you're right.
Peter Cushing dead for 30 years, and they're like, here he is. Boom.
But still, to me, like, I look at that scene and I go like, okay, they just like created a 3D character. A lot of people probably don't even really know who this is, but I mean, like, to bring back young Luke, it's like all of a sudden now, like, you could do anything, you know? There's just something about it being Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill, 1977, you know, like sort of the original Star. I mean, I guess that's Tarkin too. Gosh, I'm talking myself into a hole here, but I'm going to say
the hole between holes.
The hole between holes. I'm going to say, I'm going to say that she won't, though, ultimately, because I think I would not be surprised if they do it. But I think that this moment is about Anakin and Anakin only. I think like Obi-Wan walking into that scene or Yoda walking into that scene just says like, oh, and also I'm here, you know, like why, you know,
behind door number 2, it's Yoda.
Yeah. And of course, if it happens, like it'll make sense and we'll be like, oh, that was awesome. But just as a sheer guess of like, even though they can, will they? I'm going to say they won't. John?
Yeah, I definitely do not think they're going to recreate the Kanan scene. I think that was so good as it was. Recreating it for the sake of the world between worlds would be sort of too much. And like, I imagine even from a production standpoint, they're like, we should not do this. That would cost a lot of money.
I feel like the audience would just say, and who is that? They haven't mentioned Kanan.
Possibly.
They're talking a lot about Ezra, but like, what is the point of Kanan?
Possibly, yeah. So I think that's a definite no. And then the other stuff, I'm going to say no also because I hope not. I want this to be as linear and limited as possible. And I want this to be something that Ahsoka experiences, not something that is opened up to a lot of characters. So the way I see the world between worlds, I mean, it's hard to really pin down what it is. I'm not even sure Dave Filoni knows for sure what he wants it to be in the end. We'll find out. But I don't want it to be something that changes the history of the franchise. I don't want it to be something that drives plot or story. I want it to be something that just exists, that they experience, almost like Mortis. So I'm just going to say no, because I really want this to be a limited thing. And if we start bringing in Yoda, Obi-Wan, and all these other characters for reasons that we're not sure yet, I feel like we're opening a can of worms that's dangerous from the storytelling aspect. So Trent, we're not sure what you think. Apologies if you don't like those answers, but thank you for joining up on Patreon, man. I hope you did getting your question on here, and thanks for the support. Appreciate it.
Let's get to another one. Thanks again, Trent. We touched on this on TRB Live, obviously, last week, but let's make our final calls. Will the Anakin that appears to Ahsoka at the end of Part 4 in the World Between Worlds be the actual Anakin from pre-Episode 3, a Force spirit of Anakin, for instance, or possibly a manipulation or manifestation of some sort? John, go first on this one. What do you think?
After we had talked about it, because I remember going into TRB Live thinking like, I don't know what to make of this, but I am hoping it's just a manifestation in like Ahsoka's mind or something she's experiencing, that it's not actually physically Anakin from a previous time period, or that it's like not some sort of or even his Force ghost is there. I don't think he needs to be in the World Between Worlds. We know he doesn't need to be in the World Between Worlds for his Force ghost to be there. So I'm hoping it's a manifestation, but it's not like Palpatine was to Ezra. I think it'll be something that Ahsoka is experiencing in the world between worlds, something she needs to hear, that she knows she needs to hear, that sort of thing. Almost like it's like a dream, I guess. So I'm going with like it's a manifestation, but that it's something she has that's within her or something like that.
I think that there is between those three options, it being the real one, a Force spirit, or manifestation. I'm going with that it's the Force spirit of Anakin.
Oh, you do?
Yes, I think that right now there's a bunch of questions that could possibly get us to that answer. One of those questions being like, why is Ahsoka in the world between worlds? Did she get pulled into that world from the fall? Like, did somebody grab her and pull her in? That would point to whether it was the real Anakin or not. You know what I mean? Or did she die? And then for some reason, instead of just dying like any other person would, she has some sort of connection to this world because of Mortis or other things. So that's why she ended up here. Like, that would also point to what this person is, what this entity in front of her is. But I tend to think the place that we're at right now, I think that the Force is so mysterious that you have this thing where you could appear old, you could appear young. I think when you die and you go into this cosmic force and you're conscious when you're there, I'm not sure if everybody else is conscious or not because they can't always interact back with reality. But when you're there and you're aware of it, I think you don't see time as sort of like a linear thing. I think you're able to just kind of like pop around and do different things. So I have a feeling what this is this is Anakin's spirit appearing to her in the positive, but at the same time that we're seeing this Anakin, the entity that it is all Anakins. And so I think that what you're looking at is Vader Anakin as well, but they might not show us that. It's just that this entity is all of those things all at the same time. And what she is getting out of it and what she's talking to is sort of this Anakin at this sliver of time, because he is cosmic and he is everything, sort of. Does that sort of make sense? Also, don't forget Anakin's the chosen one, and he is sort of like maybe has abilities that other spirits and other things can't do or access, you know?
When you said Force spirit first, I was like, well, then why does he have a lightsaber hanging from his belt? Because we've never seen a Force ghost with a weapon on them. But then you said you sort of changed it, if I'm understanding you right, and said it's more of like anything Anakin's ever been is sort of.
Well, I'm thinking of Force spirits, and this thing is the same thing. I'm not really changing it. I just think that generally when we do think of Force spirits, we do sort of see them as just like it's hard to say because they've been everything. Like Luke in Rise of Skywalker was very blue, and Obi-Wan in Return of the Jedi was like, he had a blue hint, but he looked like he was there.
I think that's
very saturated. What
stuff? I think that's just production choices.
I don't know, man. I feel like you're right on that, but I also think that over time there's been stories about like, well, sometimes they show up like this. Sometimes Anakin's old, sometimes Anakin's young. You can be however you want to look. Qui-Gon's old.
Yeah. Has there been a canon explanation of that? Because the way I always thought it was the way you died as your true self is the way you appear as a Force spirit. That's why Obi-Wan, we've only seen him as an old man. Luke obviously liked himself better when he was probably younger and happier. He's old man Luke, Force ghost. And then Yoda, old Yoda. Well, he's always been old as far as we've seen him. And then Qui-Gon, I think they tried to make him look like how he looked in the Phantom Menace, same hair, all that stuff. If it's an Anakin was young because Anakin died when Vader was created. That's how I saw that. He came back as the last time he was Anakin.
Yeah, I know you're not going to really like this, but I'm thinking of it more like that the entity is anything that it could be, and maybe it's sometimes it's not even that the entity itself is choosing the form it wants to take, but so much as like the person looking upon it might even like that's what they see.
So if you think of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man will show up in a robe as a first guest.
But I think what like I'm sort of seeing is like if there is some good in Anakin, this entity that is out there, and it shows back up to help Ahsoka, it sort of takes the form that Ahsoka would want to see, or at least it is what it is. But Ahsoka sees that form because, you know, it's like using the Force to be able to see that entity. Like we've had that discussion before of like, did the Ewoks and everybody else see the Force ghost standing there? It's like, maybe you have to have the Force and use the Force to even be able to see the ghost in the first place. And with that comes this connection that sort of builds this entity around what you want to put into it. But
it's definitely one of the bigger headcanon things until they like say like, no, here it is. So this is
these are the things that I think like they discuss when they're writing the story, and they're like, this is how we want to do it, and then we're just going to present it. Does it need to be explained or not? You know, I have a feeling that we're going to walk away from that whole thing, and she's going to go cool or whatever, and walk out the door, and we're going to be like, what was that?
Yeah,
and we'll just never get the answer.
Yeah. It's going to be, you know, you ever see that video of Jon Stewart interviewing George Lucas about Obi-Wan's planet?
No, but it was my very first big Reddit successful post, because I posted that like on Star Wars like a long time ago that Obi-Wan's home planet was named after Jon Stewart or whatever, and I got like a ton of upvotes, and I was like, this post blew up, yay! Oh, nice. Yeah, there's years ago.
There's a video of that moment, and he's interviewing him for something, and he's like, we know where all these other people are from. We don't know where Obi-Wan's from. Where's Obi-Wan from? And Lucas looks up and goes, and Jon Stewart's like, well, don't make it up now on the spot. And George Lucas is like, no, that's one of the first things I ever wrote. Obi-Wan's actually from a planet called Stewjon. And then the whole crowd laughs, and Jon Stewart laughs. And it's like, the reason why I bring that up is, if you ask George Lucas this question that we're talking about right now, he'd be like, well, ultimately, it... and he would just come up with an explanation. I bet there is not an official explanation.
I tend to think, I said this on TRB Live, I tend to think that Dave does have the explanation, and he just like only tells people that he trusts or cares or think it's important to notice. But he holds all that stuff to himself, and he just puts it out there and lets fans do whatever they want to do with it. But he knows that it's good because it's thought through in his own mind. Like, it's not just make something up. He's like, well, it's got to have a backstory. And so he writes out the backstory, and then he does it. And then he says, it makes sense because there is a logical explanation of how it got there. I'm just the only one who knows the logical explanation.
I think Star Wars is best when there is no explanation.
I think it's best when at least one person has the explanation. We don't need to know it, but it needs to be thought out.
But you don't know that they know that.
But I think that I do. I think that Dave does. That's my thought. I think he has thought out a lot of his like camera movements and everything because he's meticulous like that. But let's get to another one of these patron submissions. This one specifically coming from Commander Danny, who goes by at Semperfi Danny. Danny asks us the question: based on the overwhelmingly positive reaction his episode of Ahsoka received, will Peter Ramsey be given the opportunity to direct a full-fledged series or movie? I'm going to go first on this one. I'm going to say no. I think that we sometimes also need to separate, because I know not everybody does this, but I think most people do, is they take what was written in the story and the reveals and the character and what is happening in that episode, and they attribute it to the director of that episode. And I'm not saying that Peter Ramsey did a bad job. Obviously he did a good job, but when it comes to the actual like direction, I feel like he did as good of a job as everybody else so far in the season. If you have a really great episode, it's not necessarily because of the director. I think that too many people say, oh, that was the episode where this happened. Sometimes the directors are just given that episode. This is what's going to happen in your episode. I wrote it. This is the way I want it to go. Direct it, I think Peter Ramsey is awesome, and he is one that probably could handle a whole series or a movie. But I think right now, he did his Mandalorian episode, and now he's doing an episode of Ahsoka, and I just think he's dipping his toes, and it's no big deal. And I don't think there's anything because of fan reception to what happened in the episode. Like, oh, Anakin showed up, better give this guy a movie. It's like, he didn't have anything to do with Anakin showing up. What are your thoughts?
I don't think, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with that aspect of it, but I don't think you're giving directors enough credit in terms of how the story's told, because they do have license to make certain decisions that bring the story to its most optimal way of being told. But with Peter Ramsey, like, everything he directed before his episode of Mando was animation. So his live action resume is an episode of The Mandalorian and an episode of Ahsoka. I'm not, and I realize I'm saying that as we're talking about Dave Filoni, who is now gone from animation to live action. So I'm not saying he's not going to eventually
the irony
get the
isn't lost
opportunity.
on you.
Yeah, right. But I don't think they like giving these series to just one director. Now, we saw that with Obi-Wan, and I think some people would admit that didn't look as good as some of these other series look. Filmed in the same exact spot as Ahsoka, and I think if you hook anyone up to a lie detector test, they would say Ahsoka looks 10 times better than Obi-Wan Kenobi looked. That's on the director, because the director makes final calls on special effects. Now, we don't know what the budgets were, but I would say their one experience having one of these shows directed by one person didn't work as well as it being operated by multiple directors. Showrunners could be the issue there too, as well, of course. But not, Favreau not being involved on that one, Filoni not, I'm not sure. But long story short, I think typically they like getting different people in these seats. So to give Peter Ramsey his own series over all these other people, like a Bryce Dallas Howard, doesn't make sense to me. So that's out. The movie thing, no, just because they are already trying to get the ones that they just announced made, in addition to the other ones they've announced that they haven't talked about, like Taika and Ryan Johnson. So we have, Mangold, we have Charmin Obaid-Chinoy's Rey movie, and we have Filoni's movie. Like, where's that movie going to be? So I think they like working with people they've worked with before, so I can see Peter Ramsey continuing to work with them. But to give him his own series or a movie right now, I just don't. I don't think so.
Right. I'm not trying to. By the way, I'm not trying to discredit what they do on the episode.
No, I know.
But I just think, like, when it comes down to like shot choices and how the editing is put together and stuff, I don't think that is the stuff that fans are really raving about. They're really raving about the fact that we had these cool like lightsaber battles and the hypers, the Ghost and Carson Teva and Anakin and the World Between Worlds and the writing and the dialogue of Baylan Skoll. It's like, and
look,
he helped with all of that, but he didn't. But that's what they loved about the episode, because this is the high point in the show.
I think he did a great job with it. I think he did a really good job with his Mando episode too. But yeah, and a great question though, Danny, and appreciate you sending that in, and as always, being a part of what we got going on.
All right, we do have another one though. Let's get to it. He said he was done with Kanan, even saying that he did the voice spot in episode 9 for Filoni and Filoni only. But will Freddie Prinze Jr.'s voice as Kanan be heard with new dialogue in the Ahsoka series? John, I think you get to go first on this one. What do you think? remember what you said on the first question.
Yeah, what did I say on the first question?
No way.
Oh, the
Kanan's
sacrifice
death
scene? Yeah. Well, that's different, though, because we could still hear his voice and that not be anything that's, we heard his voice in episode 9. He did say he wasn't going to do it. I'm going to say the answer to this is no. I really believe Freddie Prinze Jr. I think he's done. Done.
I agree with that. I don't know. I don't know what Kanan would really add to this moment.
Oh, it doesn't have to be this moment. At any point in the series. We could see Ezra, and Ezra could be sleeping,
Yeah, I just think I think the World Between Worlds probably closes up again. Like, I think she's out of it by the end of the next episode.
We can hear his voice in a vision. We could hear his voice in a dream. We could hear it. It doesn't have to be World Between Worlds. I'm still saying no.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I would love to see it, but the show isn't about us, Ezra. If the show was called Ezra Bridger or Ezra or something, that was very focused on him, then I would think there's a possibility of, somehow incorporating Kanan. But to be honest with you, it just doesn't feel like he's, I don't want to say important, but he's just not part of this story. Even when it comes down to like Hera and Jason, it's like they're not really giving the fans that, they're not going that far just to be like, you're a lot like your dad, the hero that saved us all. Or, they're not going that extra mile to mention him. He's just not really part of this story. And that's fine.
Did you see that Gizmodo article? They said that they spotted a photo of Kanan on the dashboard of the Ghost.
No.
Yeah, and they showed an image of it, and that was the first I saw of it. But that might be it. But either way, yeah, I don't think so either. But let's get rolling because we have a lot to do.
Yeah. Now I'm wanting to look that up. All right, but let's go on and do the Kessel Run.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon? It's a ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs.
It's got to be one of my favorite audio drops for a segment. I just love hearing the cantina band in the background, and Han getting very defensive about his hunk of junk. Now that Rebels Season 5, Ahsoka is halfway over, let's revisit Rebels and give our picks for the 12 best moments of the series. Now, if you're new to TRB, the Kessel Run is our combined list of 12 of anything in Star Wars. We pick many topics. We do this. We've done this a ton of times, and we put together our picks and then give you our collective 12. And then we like to see what you think about those picks and what your picks are as well. So in the comments, we want to make sure you put what your picks are for the best moments in Rebels, or if you want to email them to us, or if you're on Patreon, shoot them over on the Discord server. Either way. But we're doing it a little different this time. Usually we sort of know what our picks are and we go around and we explain why. This time we're going to do a little bit of a draft where we're going to decide, one of us goes first, then we're going to alternate, and we could snipe each other's picks without knowing it. It's going to be fun. So James, to kick things off, we'll rock, paper, scissor it. 2 out of 3. And the winner of rock, paper, scissors will be the first pick. And then we'll alternate.
All right, rock, paper, scissors.
It'll be rock, paper, scissors, shoot. And on shoot, we throw it.
Okay.
Rock,
paper, scissors, shoot.
You got me.
Yep.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. You're throwing late.
There's a lag. I'm not seeing. But by the way, yours is off the screen. You lift it up so I can see what it even is.
Yeah, but I lost both times. Do you think I'm changing it to a loss?
What? Oh, no. Yeah.
All right, so you go first. You did rock and paper. Somehow you used the Force and figured out what I was throwing.
I did kind of use the Force.
James is going to start us off on the Kessel Run with his first pick on the best moments in Rebels according to TRB.
You can ask Steve from Black Series Rebels how I just won that.
Why? How?
Rock, paper, scissors. You'll ask him later. Anyway, I'll get started. All right. The one I'm taking right off the board for my list is Ahsoka versus Anakin.
Oh my
Or
god!
Ahsoka versus Darth Vader. That whole
All right.
season 2 finale. I'm grabbing it right off. That's got to be the one.
What's
Number
your
one.
favorite Metallica song? Enter Sandman.
Can't make fun of me. Was that not going to be your pick?
I mean, I'm not trying to be super competitive on this, but all right. So that goes without saying. Huge scene. Yeah.
I think it is the scene that people generally attribute to why the show is so good. I think there are other reasons that make it even better when they tie in later. But I think when people watch that scene, or when they go like, oh man, you should watch Rebels, that's like the scene that they show people or try to convince people is like, they have this moment and it was all this build up and it was such a good fight and they broke his face, and then they brought in this voice actor and the other voice actor, and like it was just, I think everything all combined that is like peak Rebels. So
the other voice actor you're referring to is James Earl Jones?
I think so. Did they use James Earl Jones for Rebels? Yeah. Okay. Well, what I mean to say though is he was the constant James Earl Jones voice actor. So they brought in James Arnold. Yeah, Matt Lanter. That's right.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're not making this list without having this on it, and that will probably be the case for a bunch of these.
Or at least like the first 6, I think.
Yeah, and I like the vulnerability that Ahsoka shows, where she like lets her guard down and she's like, Anakin, and then he's like, and now you're gonna die. Like,
yep.
So it's
great.
Yeah, it's a good scene.
Obi-Wan too.
Yes, yeah.
When they redid it.
They redid it, but with the other side of the mask and for different reasons. And I love both. I think it was great how they did both. And then I believe this is the spot where Ezra yanks her out in the World Between Worlds. At the end of this duel, right? Later
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Great pick.
But I consider that a different moment.
Yes. No, I know. I'm just saying we were talking about World Between Worlds.
Right.
Till the cows come home. All right. So my first pick will be, I guess I got to go big to match the energy here. I'm going to go Obi-Wan versus Maul.
I kind of scattered my list. I think that was like 4th on my list.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking it was something I might be able to pick up in like
there's
a second or third round maybe.
Yeah, and I have a couple I hope you didn't pick because I like them. I like them very much, and I'm not, looking for, Screen Rant's top 10 here. I'm looking for what's important to us. But I just think that duel really grew on me a lot. And when I first saw it, I hated it. Because I was like, how can they finally get these two back together and it ends that quickly? And then I watched the Sam Witwer video where he is smarter than all of us, and he explains the 3 different stances he uses, Qui-Gon's and everything, and he observes the tendencies of Maul from the previous battles, and I realized how good it was, but more so than the actual. Go ahead.
I was going to say real quickly, there's that whole he used the same move against Qui-Gon and all that. Move. It's like, dude, this is so thought out. Yeah,
and he cuts him up. But I think more than that, more than just that duel, the lead up to it, of course, the mania that's happening within Maul, Ezra being there is kind of wild. But also after the duel itself, seeing the compassion and empathy that Obi-Wan has for this person he just cut down, knowing everything that Maul did to Obi-Wan in the past is the true testament of the goodness of Obi-Wan. And it's like that, like you can look at all the things Obi-Wan has done, and I think you can make the argument that this is in a top 5 Obi-Wan moment, because the person that you should be so happy is now gone. He's still like holding and like showing some sense of sympathy for, when he, no other person would be able to do that.
Yeah. It's hate the sin, not the sinner.
Yeah. And then them also talking about the idea of the chosen one and Luke and all that. So it's a great scene, and it grew on me a lot, and I understood a lot more than when I first saw it, and it clearly has resonated with a lot of people. And of course, you have Stephen Stanton, Sam Witwer doing the voices. We love both of them, especially Stephen. Did a great old Obi-Wan, and I just thought it was a wonderful, wonderful moment in Rebels that is on a lot of people's walls, probably, that not many shots from the series are.
I used to have an Apple Watch wallpaper, or like watch face, so that like when you looked at your watch, it was Obi-Wan going whoosh, whoosh. And he would like cut, and then it would freeze like with his saber down, and Maul, like, having been like cut, or however he was posed, but you get to see that, like, that block and cut down. It was that what could fit in a live photo. So it was pretty cool.
Nice.
All right. So we both got our
you're up for your second pick.
I am going to go with, now, best is relative, but most meaningful moments, I'm picking Kanan's death.
All right. I mean,
I think that Kanan's death is,
it was on my list.
Whereas the other scene is the one where like Rebels fans show other Star Wars fans to be like, you got to see this, watch this. That doesn't work with Kanan's scene, because they don't know who Kanan is or the relevance of it. That scene to me is really just for the people who have watched the shows. It's for them. It's for the Rebels fans. They now have this thing that means so much to them, and the show led up to that point. We saw it happen, and then we saw the aftermath of that happen, of what happened. And it's sort of the, I don't know, like, it's sort of like the climax of the series, if you will. Like, I know the show ends big, but I really do feel like if there was like, if you were like looking at Ezra's arc gets to Kanan's death, and then there's like the fall off of that, and then what he learned from that.
Yeah, and then regaining his eyesight for a moment, for one last look at Hera, was a good touch. So the Force can cure blindness, which is nice. But yeah, it was on my list. Definitely an iconic moment. It's got, again, one of those got to be on the list at some point.
Right.
And yeah, a great job overall to conclude Freddie Prinze Jr.'s role in Star Wars. Yeah, good pick. No doubt about it. Classic sacrifice. And I think it taught a lot of the characters that as well, including Ezra and what he had to end up doing as well at the end of the series. Okay, good stuff. I am going to go with... Ooh. This is tough, man, because I don't want you to take this.
There's a couple in there that I'm already looking at. Like, I'm like, I think I can get away with that one. I don't think he's going to pick it.
I know. Me too. I'm going to go with Ezra's rejection of Palpatine in The World Between Worlds.
I love it, but not on my list.
It's my favorite moment in the series.
Really?
Yeah, but I felt like, because you went Ahsoka Vader, I had to match that before you took that one too. So I had to go Kenobi. This is a different style of Kessel Run for sure. We're drafting it, but Ezra's rejection of Palpatine. One, because we talked to Taylor Gray about this at length on our episode, and how I not to brag, but I brought up something that he said he never realized, which is that the way it was shot was they shot Ezra from so far away, so he looked like this small little thing in this giant space in terms of like relevancy. And then when he gets down that hallway, it gets smaller and smaller, and he becomes bigger and bigger, and the stakes become higher. And he's faced with Palpatine and the temptation of being able to be with his parents again. Like, and then everybody thinks about that, whether you still have your parents or not. You think about, if I didn't have my parents, I would have the opportunity to be back with them if I just stopped and just did this. And it's like, it's the Snow White with the apple thing. It's just like that temptation of wanting to take it, and he rejects it. And I think that's such a powerful moment, because it was so evil from the perspective of Palpatine, because it was pleasant Palpatine. It was clear-voiced, nice little friendly old man Palpatine. It wasn't the monster that we see later. And I just thought that was such a powerful moment. I thought Taylor Gray did such a great job with it. And it's my personal favorite moment in Rebels because of the strength he took to do what he did. I mean, I just talked about the strength Obi-Wan took to show sympathy, but the strength he took to resist the person who the greatest Jedi of all time, according to Dave Filoni, could not. Ezra was able to resist Palpatine, and I thought that was just massive.
Yeah, it wasn't on my list. I think it like crossed my mind, but looking at some of the other ones that are on my list, like, you know, near the bottom or something, I probably should have added that. You've really convinced me that like I sort of overlooked that moment. And we talk about it on the show pretty often. It's a great moment. So it's a good pick. It's a strong pick.
Yeah. I feel like you're trying to sell the audience by saying like, well, it wasn't really on my list.
No, honestly, I'm trying to be a little bit more like open with the fact that I think I just sort of missed that one.
All right. You're up for your third pick.
Because believe me, the bottom of my list is like, you think that was a better moment than, you know what I mean?
I have
that big moment where Ezra is rejecting Palpatine. So some of these, like I said, I can't, it's not like I watched Rebels yesterday. You know, it's like some of these I just sort of am pulling from memory, like, oh, that was a great moment. That when I think of Rebels.
I mean, I did my rewatch, so I'm feeling fresh.
Oh, man. All right. Well, I'm in it to win it. So I'm going to go also with Ezra and Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds.
Yes.
You wanted me to pick that?
Yeah. Well, no, just because I thought you were going to pick my next one.
Oh, okay.
This is good. I mean, it ties into your first pick.
Ties into the first one too. Yeah. I think like for me, that moment in season 2 gets elevated to the level that it is because you have this other side of it where it's like, well, what happened at the end of that fight? Ahsoka goes into like a tunnel, or like, we don't know what's going on. And you get all of the payoff and so much more with him walking into this world, and he hears, you know, Rey and all this other stuff. He's just like, there all these voices around, and we're just in complete wonderment watching the episode. And as he nears Ahsoka, he realizes what it is. He pulls her out, and very similar to your story, he also then goes and looks at Kanan and says, I could pull him out, and realizes that he can't. You have to resist that temptation. So it's very similar to yours. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably why I was so focused on, like, you know, that moment is maybe why I didn't think of the other one. But yeah, I think the World Between Worlds, just that episode, that moment, everything that it brought, sort of, for good and for bad, like revitalized the world of Star Wars speculation to the nth degree. And we've just been talking and talking and talking about it for so long. Mm-hmm. You know, if this was a Clone Wars one, I would probably have to pick Mortis episode, because it's just like, what, you know, or that 3 episode arc.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy what he has done for Star Wars already, that we're seeing the ramifications of it now in live action. So
yeah, I feel like sometimes people talk about that whole event more than the lightsaber duels, because we've seen on these epic lightsaber duels, we've never seen that before.
Right.
So,
it's new, it's fresh, it's interesting.
yeah. And I think you and I both even though we both pick a World Between Worlds moment, we're hoping that it's not something that's going to completely blow up. Because, I mean, diehard fans aside, I was talking to someone about this, and they're like also a diehard fan, but they're like, are casual fans going to look at this and be like, so Star Wars is doing like time travel now without fully understanding what it is, and like check out on it? Just so I hope they handle it right, but we're here to just talk about Rebels. So that's
yeah. And I don't think we did that in Rebels. I don't think people checked out when they saw, they're like, oh my God, Star Wars, this show was good, but now it's jumping the shark. They're time traveling and pulling people out. We saw what it was and we liked it. So I hope that that's what will happen with Ahsoka as well.
Yeah. But I mean specifically general audiences who I'm not sure watched Rebels, but
yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, that's true.
My next pick, this is gonna be a tough one because I feel like we're entering Snipeville. I have to go with this one because I feel like it is more on the surface at this moment. So I'm gonna say Trials of the Darksaber.
Okay, it's on my list, definitely. And no joke, I went down a small rabbit hole last night and rewatched that episode. So it is.
Yeah.
And then I think part of that might be what inspired this discussion, because I was like, dude, some of Rebels is so great.
Yeah. And if you want to talk about the actors, that has to be Tia Sarkar's like, look at, you want to hire me for a role? Here's my snippet. Here's my reel. This is on it. She does such a good job of selling the emotion of Sabine that I'm still looking for that in live action right now from Natasha Liu Bordizzo. Just completely, when you get driven to that point where everything comes out of you, like that's her moment there. That's, and instead of it being like a venting, blubbering cry, it's her just unleashing everything that's inside her while dueling with Kanan. That started with just an innocent training exercise. And of course, the whole thing with the Darksaber and now it's gone. And, I forgot that Moff Gideon destroyed it. Maybe we could pull that back through the World Between Worlds and give it back to Sabine. But I was always hoping that she would get it back. I think that's probably why I had that slip up. But I just think it's a great scene because you have Freddie Prinze Jr., who's sort of like the foundation of it. And he's more like grounded. And then she is just going through everything that she's gone through all at once right now in this moment. Her legacy, her family, her history, her future, and everything through this. And Ezra's sitting there watching it. And it's just kind of crazy.
Can I say something mildly controversial about that scene?
I mean, yeah.
Because I think what is being said out of her mouth is amazing, and I think what really elevates that scene. And I think Tia Sakar did a great job in the scene, but I actually think the better voice actor in that moment is Freddie Prinze Jr. I part of why I love
that's controversial. I mean,
I'm just saying, like, I think what you're watching on screen is her telling her story, and that's what it's supposed to be. That's the focus. That's why it has all the emotion that it does. But I think if you're looking at the two of them, like which voice actor performed the scene better, I love Freddie Prinze Jr. and Kanan Jarrus in that moment. And it's one of the reasons, like, I absolutely love that character, because everything about how he's delivering those lines, like, you should give up. And like the way he's just doing every line, and also this isn't his voice acting, but like the movements of his character being so like perfect and setting her up for every move,
which he may have done to a certain element in studio.
She's not just having that moment; he's making her have that moment.
He's pushing her. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I love it. It's such a good scene. And I think
and she beats him. She beats him.
Yes, she does. Yeah. I think legitimately too. I think I don't think that's sort of like, oh, she's there now, so
he puts his hand up.
I'll give her the points she deserves or whatever.
Yeah, he gives her the old, all right. Yeah.
She catches him off guard. But man, I really love that scene. It's on my list. And if you wouldn't have taken it, I would have grabbed it at some point.
All right, now I gotta hope you don't take what
I don't.
want.
I'm gonna go with the one that I think. I think this is where we're almost to the point now where I go. I
Well,
think
we're at the
sort
halfway
of
point.
we're sort of not stepping on each other's toes too much.
Okay,
But
see.
this is the last one that I think you might grab, so I'm gonna try to grab it.
This is pick 7, James's 4th pick.
All right, here we go. It's the epilogue.
Oh, come on! I have that on my list.
Is it really? Is it your next?
Of course it is. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saving it a little bit longer because I thought maybe you hadn't thought of it.
It wasn't my next pick, but it was definitely probably going to be in my 6. It's on my overall list. I didn't rank them. It probably would have made it into the 6.
All right, the epilogue, I think, it makes it all so worth it. Like I don't know what it is, but like if the show ended without that scene, you would have been like, wow, that was a really good show. But there's something about the music and seeing the characters be happy and sort of like give us that extra extension into the future where it's like you see Lethal built up. You see Hera and Jason Solo, Jason Syndulla. Yeah. I was like, Jason Jarrus? I was like, that's not right.
That
like,
sounds pretty cool.
What was the naming convention?
Jason Jarrus sounds pretty cool.
It's like the Marvel Star Wars thing or the Marvel alliteration thing.
Yeah.
But I think just everything sort of coming together with Callus and like he was forgiven and he's been accepted into this race and he now helps them out. All of it. Rex and everybody fighting in the Battle of Endor, and did they say Battle of Jakku as well? I can't remember. But either way, it's so bought in.
I think
they just say Battle of
Endor. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that.
They don't say Battle of Jakku.
Okay, yeah. But man, I think and then that the final moment of just like Sabine and then she's there at the painting and she turns around and you see Ahsoka. You're like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is Ezra's promise? What does she need to do? And it's it's just such an epic cliffhanger. It might even be like in my top like best endings to a show ever.
Well, I'll tell you, I like the ending. I think it was important for the show because there were so many characters introduced throughout. Even like people were probably wondering like, oh, I wonder what happened to Callus or whatever. And then they even include him in the epilogue and like how he sort of had his closure with the Lasats. And it's on my list, and it probably would have been on my list without Ahsoka. But now that we're in Ahsoka, I feel like it's so much more important because, like Filoni said, like you got to watch, season 4 of Rebels, and if you watch season 4 of Rebels and you get the epilogue, you get like probably a better idea just from the epilogue than anything. Oh, this is Hera. She has a son. It's Kanan's son. So then when we see him in Ahsoka, it's not like, who the heck is that kid? Mm-hmm. And then even some of the shots of Sabine looking from her tower and you see the Ahsoka ship and the flanking support ships. Like we saw those shots in Ahsoka too, So I think it's important for Rebels, but I think it's even doubly important now that Ahsoka's here and we need to bridge that gap. And I think it serves a bigger purpose. So it's a good pick.
Ezra bridged that gap?
I like that. We can go with that. Well done. All right, my next one is going to be when Kanan Jarrus reveals that he's a Jedi.
Oh, I thought about it, but I didn't put it on my list. I thought
22 pickup for the win.
Not bad.
I think that is we talked about our Star Wars fans looking for the big twists and reveals. I would be lying if I said I knew or people knew that there was going to be a Jedi in that series. It was called Star Wars Rebels. It was supposed to be about a little pocket of the rebellion on Disney Junior, Disney X.
We thought it was the cartoon version of Andor. Yeah. Like, oh, we get what.
Yeah. Yeah. Before Rogue One. Yeah. So or around the time of Rogue One anyway. When was Rebels? 2015, 2016?
Well, it was, yeah, it's like starts before and ends. I mean, it ended after after Rogue One came out.
But just sort of how Kanan reveals it into the middle of the shootout, it's not one of these big Jedi moments that you would expect someone to be like, I'm a Jedi, in like a temple somewhere. They're like, it's a firefight. And he's like, I'm about to reveal something, we're all going to find out. And then he hops over, ignites his lightsaber, the music swells, and then, was it Callus?
I don't remember.
But he's like,
honestly, I need to revisit this. He's like that first season, because it sort of gets lost in the mix of like not tons of big things happen. Like this first season's fine, but like, you know, it's the second season, third season, fourth season.
But I think really in the context of it, like in how he goes, all your firepower on the Jedi, and then
yeah,
he's deflecting it all.
It probably is Alice.
And Ezra's like, oh my God. He's like, oh, whoa. He's freaking out. But when you look at that scene now, it might feel a little watered because we've gotten so many more Jedi since Rebels came out. But I think when that moment happened,
it is Callus. He's fighting against Callus.
Oh, yeah.
Brigade of stormtroopers defending the Wookiees.
Yes. Yeah. And when that moment happened, there weren't really other Jedi anymore. It really was pretty holding true to what Lucas was sort of saying. Like, all the Jedi are pretty much gone. It's Obi-Wan, it's Luke, it's Yoda, and that's pretty much it. Now we've gotten, you know, Cal Kestis and all of these people who survived, and it's getting a little muddled. But when Kanan was revealed, I think that
Ahsoka too, you know.
Ahsoka, yeah.
Like at the time, we didn't even know she was around. And
right. So when Kanan was revealed, I feel like it was just this big deal. And people were like, oh my God, I did not expect a Jedi to be in this show. And of course, it sets the tone for everything else thereafter.
Yeah. It's a big pick, man. I like that.
Thanks. Now, number 5 for you, which is number 9 overall. So you have 2 picks left.
Man. Okay. Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, my list is so much longer.
Dude.
It's tough.
I probably shouldn't have said that.
Oh yeah, I don't know, man. Dang, we're gonna have to do some honorable mentions or something. All right, I'm between 3. Let's see. I'll pick the one that I know I gotta pick. Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor.
Oh, okay. So
that is, if not the Anakin or the Darth Vader Ahsoka fight that I was talking about earlier, for me personally, that's one of the moments that I send people when I say like, oh, are you missing you didn't watch Rebels, or you think it's, you know, a cartoon or whatever, watch this lightsaber fight and just tell me like what you think about it. Because just the whole aspect of Kanan at one point ends up using Ezra's lightsaber, and then he does like the blast thing, and then like starts hitting him again with the lightsaber as the blade. And Ezra's sitting there like, I didn't even think to use it like that. You know, it's like it's showing how creative Kanan is. And then when Ezra gets hurt and knocked off, like his devotion to being like, now you just made a big mistake, you know? Yeah. And all that season leading up to, you know, who the Grand Inquisitor is and why he's so bad and all this stuff. And now we've even gotten Kenobi and all that. And it's like, this guy is kind of a big deal. And that battle is very well choreographed and thought out. And I really love seeing it. It's such a good pick.
Okay.
Which like might then might mean I don't pick the other one that I have on my list. I'll give you a hint. Well, it was another lightsaber battle, but I don't think I'm going to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is a good pick. It's
not on your list.
No, I didn't put that on my list. I mean, I very well could have. It is a great moment, and I know people were in a bit of an uproar for a little bit there when
this is tough.
The Grand Inquisitor got stabbed in Kenobi. And they're like, wait, when does this take place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes no sense whatsoever.
Apparently he has many stomachs or something. And as does Sabine. I don't know. But anyway, my next pick, then I have to raise the stakes here. And I got to go with Ezra's sacrifice to defeat Thrawn.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
I had to do it. Ezra defeating Thrawn.
Yeah, it's weird. You said Ezra defeating Thrawn. I wrote it as Ezra summons the Purgil.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So, yeah, I mean, clearly this is a big moment that doesn't need much explanation. It sets the tone for the plot of Ahsoka, for one thing, in two ways for both Thrawn and Ezra. And it's sort of alluding to what your pick about Kanan's death. I feel like Ezra really learned a lot from Kanan on what it meant to be a Jedi, which is there's things that you feel and things that you want, but things that you need to do that stand above those for the people you love in many instances. So I think that is, like how Luke, I feel like, became a Jedi the moment he threw away his lightsaber in Return of the Jedi, like really became a Jedi in a sense. I feel like this is the moment Ezra becomes a Jedi. He's a Jedi Knight in this moment. And he doesn't have his mentor anymore. He's sort of now the one. It's sort of like Obi-Wan lost Qui-Gon and then had to all of a sudden become the master. This is Ezra's moment, and we haven't gotten to see Ezra be a Jedi Knight yet, in my opinion. So I think this is his moment and one of the bigger moments in the series.
Absolutely. Man, that was one of the ones that was really high up on that list that I was upset that I only have one more pick. So
I think that catches me, like that added a little weight I needed on my list. But I mean, there's a lot to go from. We each only have one pick left.
The other thing I want to say about that scene too is that it was perfectly set up with, like, I think there's going to be a plot twist, or there's going to be something that we didn't expect. And I think they delivered perfectly. It was payoff and plot twist at the same time. When all of those creatures showed up, everybody goes, holy crap. Like,
I remember being
those
like,
episodes mattered. And like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I always trip on these words, but like, I just don't think there was anybody that called that. I just don't think there's anybody out there that's like, what's going to happen is he's going to call the space whales back and they're going to like help him
from like
take those ships down. They're going to like bash into the sides and tear down the ships or something. And it's like, even if you thought that, you're still kind of wrong. It's like it like wrapped itself around and they like took off to hyperspace, never to be found again. And it's like, what is this? That's such a crazy ending. And I love it.
Yeah. I remember, I don't even remember if I remembered the Purgle my first watch, and then they show up and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And then
you'd sort of forgotten about him?
I think so. Cause I remember seeing the Purgle and I remember Ezra connecting with them, but I had thought once that all passed, I thought it was one of those like weird Clone Warsy things where this thing happens and this occurs and then that's it. And then all of a sudden, bam, what a pivotal thing they become later on. And clearly are
now even more
going to be in the future.
Yeah, in Mando, in Ahsoka.
And they look so good in Ahsoka too. They did a good job. All right. We have one more pick each. You are up for your final pick in the Kessel Run. Pick 11 of 12.
Man, so many. This one is actually lower on my list, but it calls to me. I really want to talk about it. My final pick is going to be Kanan and the Bendu.
Oh,
it's technically a few different moments, but really like when you think about it, they're very short scenes. They're only like 2 minutes at a time when they pop up, but just anytime Kanan kind of came into contact with this creature, initially sort of being like frightened by him, like, oh, you're a force wielder, you know, and him being like force wielder, interesting use of term, you know, and the Bendu is kind of the thing that gives him his sight back, makes him walk over to the spiders, explains what he's really fearing. The Bendu later comes in and says, like, I'm in the middle and I'm not taking part of this. You brought this war, you know, and all. It's just everything about that creature is that border where Dave Filoni crosses it, and we're glad he crosses it. Like World Between Worlds, the Mortis stuff, it's like, this doesn't feel Star Wars-y at all, but we go, but it's cool, and we accept it. It's not, they didn't go too far, they didn't break it too far. When that creature to me also is very like anime sort of. It reminds me a lot of like The Last Airbender, which Dave obviously worked on as well. But it's sort of like when you just go to that place, or like Neverending Story, you go to that place and there's a giant turtle that talks and is, you know, cool, and he's wise, and he just is there, you know, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Something we almost got in Rise of Skywalker, not to bring it up again, but the Eye of Webbish Bog and all that. It's like, why did they cut this? You know what I mean? Like, was it for time? Like, I don't know. It just drives me nuts that we had this opportunity to talk to a cool, wise creature that would give him some information and tell him how to get to place, you know, or whatever. But instead you just like show like him pushing off the top of a treasure chest and it pulls it out. That's it. That's all you get. All right. But I hope this gets brought into live action. I hope this is in Ahsoka or in the movie or something. I hope, not that it's Bendu, because Bendu might even be dead. But the point is, I hope at some point they have to go and talk to the giant creature that is like, you know, this insane puppet or something. And it's just awesome. And it's this being of the Force that they don't, you know, I can't even put it into words. I think the whole concept of the Bendu and how Kanan was interacting with it is another thing that just puts Rebels into this era of like, yo, that show's really cool. Some of the stuff they do in that show is wild, and it's good wild.
Yeah, I agree. The Bendu is weird, very weird. And it's also unassumingly bipartisan, I guess. Because there's, you know, he's not like, oh, he's all light side or whatever. Right. That's a good pick. Yeah. All right.
Maybe Balin is the Bendu reincarnated.
Yeah. Bendu skull.
Yeah.
That would be cool to see in live action, though. I agree. And they could definitely do it. No doubt about it. I mean, we just saw the Purgle look incredible. So they can, I mean,
it would be so wild if they did that. And I think fans would just eat it up and accept it.
They may do it. We may be sitting here next week being like, dude, the Ben.
Holy crap. Another Force. Wait, what was the term?
Force, not wielding. Force knowing? Force. I don't know. I don't want to.
You know, it's funny. I think actually we used to say Force sensitive, and we would correct it to no. He's a Force wielder. Even though Kanan says that because he says he uses the Force or he has some sort of Force connection, and he goes, "You're a Force wielder," and Bendu goes like, "Oh, interesting term," or something like that. Like I don't know that I would call myself that sort of. That I got that vibe from him, but also it's sort of he's mysterious in a way of like, oh, I've been called many things, you know. So I think that's probably where we came to the term Force wielder.
All right, I like that. All right, my last pick, last pick. I like this scene for so many reasons, and it's when Ezra speaks with Yoda.
Oh, such a good scene, but not on my list. Goes to show how many good moments there are, though.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously like this for many reasons. One, just from a fan of Yoda perspective, Frank Oz coming back to do the voice. And that's all due respect to Tom Kane and anyone else who's done the voice. But in my opinion, nobody can do Yoda but Frank Oz. I think everyone else who tries to do Yoda just sounds like it's an impression and not an interpretation or anything like that. It's Frank Oz or bust for me. And what was so good about how he did his Yoda in this, and I have to give credit to Dave Filoni for this, is he really did harness the voice of Yoda as we knew him. I feel like in the prequels, it got a little Grovery. And you could say like, oh, Yoda was younger then. It's like, yeah, but like 30 years younger out of 900. That's like, how does my voice sound a year from now? You know, or whatever.
Yeah.
So that he sounded great. And the stories he was telling us, it was almost like a history lesson. And they used imagery of Attack of the Clones and talking about like, and Ezra's just like looking for the quick answer. You have to know how to beat Darth Vader and the Inquisitors, right? And Yoda's like, all right, take it easy. Come take a look at the storyboard here. And he tells him this whole story about the past, present, and future of the Jedi. And it's Yoda talking to Ezra. And it's Frank Oz. And it's just, the only thing I don't like about it is how Yoda looked. I don't think he looked good, but everything else.
Nor did the Wookiees in your other pick.
Right. But if you close your eyes and just listen to that scene without even looking, it is masterful. And I love it.
Very good. So we got our picks. You want to run them down?
Let's run them down.
I want to do these honorable mentions. I feel like there's so many on my list I got in front of me that
we could toss out some honorable mentions. I definitely had some on my list that wouldn't make your traditional top 12 that I would like to just give a quick nod to.
Yeah.
But we'll keep those quick because we're up on time.
Yep.
But here's the lists. Should we split them up?
I was going to say, you go and I'll read what's not on your list.
You want to do the honorable mentions before running down the list?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. The list. So James's picks were 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. And they were Ahsoka. Well, in a draft, that's important. Ahsoka versus Vader, Kanan's death, Ezra and Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds, the family reunion and farewell epilogue to end the series, Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor, and Kanan and the Bendu. And my 6 picks were Kenobi versus Maul, Ezra resisting Palpatine in the World Between Worlds, Trials of the Darksaber for Sabine versus Kanan, Kanan revealing that he's a Jedi, Ezra defeating Thrawn, Purgle into hyperspace, and Ezra speaking with Yoda. 12 great picks. I think they were all really good picks.
I was trying to see if there was a standout winner, like not between me and you, but like, did Kanan take most of these scenes? I think it's between Kanan and Ezra, which makes sense.
Yeah, there's 3 Kanan scenes in yours. There's 2 Kanan scenes.
I was going to say at least 2, but one of them is more focused on Sabine, but yeah.
So we're going to pin a comment, at least on YouTube, where you can comment with which lists you think won the so-called draft. Mm-hmm. But in addition to that, we also want to see what you think overall about the picks.
Tell us.
Were they on your list? What do you think of our choices? What would your picks be? What did we miss? And are any of these brief honorable mentions picks of yours? So, James, what do you have for honorable mentions?
I'll go through the list real fast. Ahsoka versus the Inquisitors. Mm-hmm. The pathway to Lasan. Ezra summons the creatures in the cave. Sabine versus Gar Saxon inside the stronghold and then out onto the ice. Hera using the B-Wing. And Zeb and Callus on the frozen planet, their like whole scene of them being alone. And finally, the Grand Inquisitor cutting off the heads of the Imperial guard, the Imperial dudes. Just like that scene was like, what did I just watch? Season 1, kids show, Disney
that
XD.
took it to another level. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So random things. I just trying to throw out all my favorite stuff. John took some of them, and that was what was left over on my list. What was some ones?
Oh, you definitely took my epilogue pick. I would have picked Ahsoka Vader at 1, so you getting the first pick. Good job on you with the rock paper scissors. All right, my honorable mentions: Chopper and AP5. I really liked AP5, seeing a droid changing sides and seeing Chopper knock out the Imperial officer and all that stuff.
We just talked about AP5 too when we were talking about other creatures that float around in space.
Steven
like
Stanton.
last week.
Steven Stanton voiced that, and he said he based it on Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman really cool. Sounds just like him. Yep. Good job.
Let's see. I did mention this earlier. Kanan regaining his sight in his final moment. A funny one from the first season for a show that expands its knowledge of the Force so much. Kanan is meditating and he hears Ezra and Zeb arguing about Hera and Sabine, and he's like, Hera and Sabine are in trouble. And Ezra's like, how'd you know that? Did you feel it? He's like, no, I can hear you two arguing outside of the door.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I got. But,
I thought of another one that I didn't write down. Not Gar Saxon. What's his name? Fen Rao, I think his name, explaining the Darksaber to Kanan in that scene where they do the flashback and all that. It's like so cool, man. So cool.
Yeah.
Him discussing how she's handling it and stuff.
Do you realize you didn't say the name Hondo once?
Didn't even think about him. He's not on my list.
There you go, man. So yeah, Rebels, good stuff. Good list. We hope you enjoyed this version of the Kessel Run. We may bring back drafts in the future. We'll see. But still, we put together our list of 12. We'll definitely have to see what Lacey has for what her picks would have been. But we want to thank everybody for listening and watching and being a part of TRB and checking out this episode. Again, like we said, drop in the comments which list you think wins the draft, James or mine. And then more importantly, we want to know what your picks are, if they match ours or if there's ones we didn't mention. It's all about remembering these cool moments and feeling good about it. But a special thank you. We talked about Patreon a bunch on this episode, but we have to give the shout outs now to the Generals and Spice Runners: Carmelo, John RISI, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Darth Hurricane, Nick KRATZ, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Rumore, Matt Heath, Brendan McLaughlin, Count Pepto, Sneaky Zebra, Aaron Ellington, Colin Cormier, Jolton Jedi DiMaggio, Diana and Dave Hornack, and the Spice Runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gelner, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Michael Fry, and the THEFORTWORTHIAN, and all of our patrons and all of our listeners, everyone who's a part of TRB. It's an awesome community, and you're a big reason why. For us, Johnny Hoey on X, on Threads, on Blue Sky. I don't use those as much, just because of the sake of time, but I'm there. So if you follow me, I'll get you back at some point. James, how about you?
Both Instagram and X at Meyer Trunks.
Nice. And then we have, of course, TRB Live last week to get caught up on our chats about the Ahsoka episodes. Lacey had an interview with the folks at Hasbro Plus about the Ghost HasLab, which got, speaking of Rebels, got passed, or whatever we call backed. So now you can buy the Ghost. It has been officially backed. It will be released. And then for me, my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies, we're doing Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof next. Also a tie to Ahsoka, because it was the first movie that Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Rosario Dawson were in together. And I tweeted about that, and Rosario Dawson gave me a quote tweet with like a heart, because she appreciated the callback. So it's very good stuff. A lot of
it's funny that you bring that up too, because I currently, like as of today, decided to really for the first time watch the 2 Kill Bill movies.
Oh, okay.
Because I know parts of them, but like I don't know, it just never really. I never like put the whole thing together.
I have to rewatch those too, because I didn't give them a fair shake the first time. So we'll see.
I think they're probably what you think they are. I'm not massively blown away. Like, how did I miss this piece of cinema?
I agree. I have a feeling though I'll like them better now. I think I'm more open-minded than I was then.
Well, that's part of the reason I actually was like, you know what? I think maybe if I watch these, I might like appreciate them more for what he's going for or whatever. But the other thing we want to mention too is that if you watch the Ahsoka episodes as they come out Tuesday nights, pay attention because we also release a quick reaction to that on the channel,
YouTube channel. Yeah.
Yes. So if you want to see like one of our quick reactions to what's going on, we vary it up. So we don't know who's doing what episode at the time, but as soon as the episode comes out, look to it shortly after.
Yeah. And then Lacey on social, I'm sure everyone knows by now, at Lacey Gilleran, and TikTok, it's Lacey Gilleran. James, did you drop yours? Myra Trunks. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. That's it for us. We'll be back with everybody in 2 days on Wednesday night, talking about what we're all expecting to be a massive episode of Ahsoka with Dave Filoni
Tomorrow.
Of course, writing, but also directing. That's coming out tomorrow. We'll be talking about it Wednesday night. So enjoy your Mondays, and we will see you very soon right here on the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids.